There we go.
And we're going.
Shout out to somebody. I don't know who. I have a feeling it's probably not going to be Drake and Party Next Door by just what I know about you.
No.
But that's what we're here to talk about. Big couple weeks for Kendrick, right?
Yeah.
Grammys, took them all home basically. And then Super Bowl. Yeah. Won the Super Bowl. Nas the only one. Congratulated him, apparently. And us.
Right.
But Drake had to do something.
Had to.
He was hurting. To be fair, though, I do think this was kind of in the works, in the plans for both him and Party Next Door for a while to drop this on that Valentine's Day weekend. Some Sexy Songs for You is what it's called. That's the title, apparently. Awful. He stole Ty Dolla $ign's, dollar sign logo thing on all of it, so I don't know what that's about. But yeah, before we jump into this one right quick, I mean, both of us have at least a little bit kind of been Drake haters a little bit vocally on the show. And I will say, if we're looking at this beef, right, that just went down with Drake and Kendrick, I definitely feel like it was the Kendrick win pretty easily, right? Yeah. I think an objective or a fan of both would say so. But what I will say is I've been like avidly just kind of bashing Drake's music, recent music anyway, for a good few years now. And part of that was because I felt like people were just like, it's Drake, it's so good. And I was like, hold on, like, it's not that good. Now that he's been so disrespected and so, like, just put in his place, I feel like, in a way, I can actually just be the level of fan of him that I actually am, which is that, like, he's good. He's got good music.
Right.
He's got garbage music, 100%. And that's kind of what, I was getting at. But, like, I do like some of his stuff. I would for sure consider him one of the more influential hip-hop artists, just the way he's changed the landscape of it and everything. So, in a way, after that whole beef thing, I was like, oh, okay, like, I can actually approach an album with a little bit more of an open mind.
Yeah.
I don't know how it worked out. We'll get into it. But yeah, I just in summary, I'm definitely a fan of Drake's. I've long time been a fan of his, but not to the degree that so many people put him up to be on this pedestal above everybody else. I don't think he's that. But how about for you? Bless you.
Excuse me.
One of them days.
Yeah. Anyways. So, as my good friend James would like to say, I just hate Drake, and that's it. I'm just a Drake hater.
Yeah.
Done.
Cut and dry.
Right. Which I'm not. I feel like I'm in the exact same boat as you. Like, I don't care for probably 98% of his new music at all. I could say they're either mid or just not good.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Granted, there are some here and there songs that I'll vibe to, especially like in recent days. Huge Drake fan when it comes to like some of his older projects. There's a lot of great songs in the past, but just recently, for the last couple of years, hasn't been able to put out even half of a good album.
Yeah.
And I've always said that Drake's now at the point of his career where he cares more about money and like streams and that than making actual good music like he used to.
Yeah.
Which I feel like there's a couple of artists that do that. Like, if that's what you're gonna do, then cool. Yeah. At least you're making some money. But I'm not gonna put you in like, oh, you're such a great artist because.
But at the point that you're describing, you're just Trippie Redd with a better voice.
Yes.
And that's not a company that I think Drake necessarily wants to be in.
Yeah. So I will say every time anybody drops an album and we decide let's review it, or even if I just want to listen to it, I always try to go in with an open mind. Like, okay, maybe it'll be better than the last. Like, that's all I can hope for. In this case, Yep.
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
Party Next Door, definitely a secondary artist to Drake on this project. I feel like unless you're a hardcore Party Next Door fan, you're really coming to the album for Drake if you're, listening to this project. Yeah. But what I will say is there's a few Party Next Door tracks I like. I think he's got a cool voice. But largely just, to be honest, he feels like a more garbage version of like The Weeknd to me. Like that kind of sultry R&B thing that he does is just what The Weeknd does, but not nearly as good or interesting. But I say that like while also saying there are a few tracks that I think he's good on. I think he's got a cool voice. Strikes me as an artist that you wouldn't really listen to a whole lot of his stuff, maybe.
No, I forget he exists on the regular.
Yeah, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. But to jump into some specifics on the album here, starting off production style, definitely more of an R&B lane for Drake, which is not unfamiliar to him, but there's definitely a lot less of the hip-hop rap elements that we might also hear from him. But it is very Party Next Door to me, just from listening to his albums. It does sound very similar to what he would do, and it sounds honestly like when I approach an album that's a collab between the two artists, exactly what I expect it to sound like. There are a few moments that I think are kind of interesting, cool, like some production that are just smooth beats, smooth R&B production style. A few dance elements that I'm kind of like, okay, it's kind of fun. It is largely uninteresting for a good majority of it. It left a lot to be desired, especially coming off of kind of a pop R&B project from The Weeknd that I really liked. I know it wasn't your favorite, but production-wise, it was very interesting and very deep to me, and this one just wasn't quite that. So there was also some really, really bad sampling moments to me that I just hated, that I was really annoyed by, and a few beats here and there that I was just like, okay, we got to get this thing over with. You know what I mean? But I did give it a 5. I felt like it was a 50-50 for me. Like I liked half the elements and then half of it wasn't great. So that's where I ended up.
So I've come to a realization that with certain artists, I now have higher expectations for them because of where they are held within society. So whether that's Drake, Cole, Kendrick, Wayne, like they are on a different level than most people because
of how
they've proved themselves. So got to be a little bit more harsh.
Sure.
I thought for the most part the production sucked. Mainly because it sounded way too repetitive throughout an hour of 14 minutes that I'm listening to this. Granted, there are some elements like you're saying, dance. There's some switch ups within like the R&B side of things, but not to the point where I'm like, oh, okay, like I'm getting something totally new. It sounds like they just kind of recycle through certain sound clips, which sometimes there's not a problem with that, but if you're doing what I think he did for 75% of the project, it just gets annoying.
For sure.
I did the one point that I can really point out and say that, oh, this was cool was the beat switch up in whatever song that was. I just know that there was a random beat switch and I was like, oh, hold on. And then it was awful. No, it was really bad. But the production side of that, cool. I'll give them that. I give it a 2.
Okay.
Not for you. And like you said, it's especially coming off The Weeknd. Like,
sure, yeah. And even an album that you didn't love all the production elements on there, but just like, even in comparison, I feel like
it's night and day difference. Sure. Like, I now appreciate The Weeknd's production tenfold over this. So,
I'm with you there. I hear what you're saying. Moving into the vocals, we talked a little bit about both artists' vocal styles to kind of set things up here. But talk to me about how you felt like they performed, because I feel like you complimented Drake's vocals at various times. Even when we were just talking Party Next Door, agreed that he has, cool vocal style, but how did they do on this project?
So I'm going to kind of give Party Next Door some slack. One, because I don't feel like either I just didn't hear him enough or I didn't notice that he was in there, or whatever. Like, so I can't really just give him any pinpoint criticism. With Drake, I have plenty of times complimented his style, his voice. I think he has a great sound. But why is half of it auto-tuned? I think the very first song was like super heavy on auto-tune.
Yeah, it was.
I don't care. Every artist uses some amount of auto-tune. Yeah. It just helps out a little bit. Yeah. But Drake isn't somebody who needs
all that much.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You give him, if it's out of 100%, you give him like 5 to 10%. That usually clears it on a mixing standpoint. But when you're giving him up to 20 to 30% and it's sounding that mixed, it's annoying because why it just feels like you're giving less and less and less, and you're just lazy and you're becoming incompetent and you like don't care about what you're doing. Yeah. And it's so I heard too much of that. I've heard way better Drake vocals from previous projects, especially in some that I don't even think were that great. I've heard better vocals from like Certified Lover Boy, which I don't even think is a great album. Yeah. It was awful. I gave vocals a 3. Because even though I don't love the auto-tune or how much was given, I still do give Drake some of that pass because he does have a good voice. Like, I just don't think he tried.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I will say, just in playing devil's advocate a little bit on things, in re-listening to some of Drake's older stuff, while his best stuff may not be that heavier auto-tune stuff, I don't feel like it's unfamiliar for his discography to include quote-unquote too much of it, you know what I mean? And that's not to say that that's like makes it okay, because even on the older projects, I don't really feel like he needed it all that much. But just to maybe structure it as that, it's not really a new Drake problem for me. But what I will say that I agree a lot with is how lazy the album sounds. And it's not even that there's mellow moments, because that's cool. Like, if you want to do something a little more melodic, a little more melodramatic, and less intense vocally, that's fine. There's a time and a place for that. But it's just that it's top to bottom on like the 20 tracks or however long it is, that it's like everything's like that. Yeah. When, on Business is Business with Young Thug, he had a great performance. Certified Lover Boy has better performances. For All the Dogs even has a lot better performances. So I agree with you there. I don't hate it as much as you do because, and maybe that's just personal preference, because I do have a little bit more of a time and a place, I feel like, where I'm just cool throwing on some mellow kind of sounding Drake or whoever. But I will say that goes for both Drake and PARTYNEXTDOOR for me, because I feel like they're very similar in terms of their ranges on this project. But it does get repetitive and annoying. One thing that I really wanted to just say was bad was the accents. Like, for what reason did he try to be Central C on one song, Drake specifically? There was another track that, let's see where it is. Where it is?
Well, to kind of add on to your accents, you got Meet Your Padre.
That's what I was going for next.
Okay, yeah.
Meet Your Padre. The whole time listening to that, going through my head was the Drewski clip where he's like, "That's gotta be racist." Like, there's no way that's not, like, I don't know. That's crazy. It was wild. I didn't like it at all. The other guy, like, I honestly, for like Spanish rap, which I'm not like the biggest listener of, Chino Pacas, I guess is their name. I don't know. Yeah. They sounded decent. Like, I respect that. But like, when Drake's in there doing it from freaking Toronto, Canada, the most non-Hispanic place on the planet, that's wild. Yeah. But I digress.
Yeah.
But to be fair, I did give the vocals a 6 just because I do feel like they're both really good vocalists. Yeah. The vocal moments that were bad were bad, but I did give a lot of it a pass because, like, you know, I have my moments where I'm gonna hate on this album, but like,
right.
To call a spade in my eyes, like, I don't think the vocal work was all that bad.
Right.
But it's definitely not his best. Moving into much more shady territory, talking about lyrics and the concept of the album next. Specifically talking lyrical content, I gave it a 2, and I all I'm gonna say is at least he brought up the fact that he lost that beef with Kendrick. Yeah, on Give Me a Hug. He definitely talked about it a little bit. I don't know if he admitted that he lost, right, but he was like definitely talking about the hate that he got following that. And I was like, okay, respect. At least you brought it up, kind of like said something about it.
Yeah.
What he said wasn't all that good. Like, you know, hey, I'm still going to get the club lit.
I'm going to get the club lit. Give me a hug. Give me a hug.
Yeah, that was garbage.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a moment or two here or there where it's like, oh, okay, not bad wordplay, like kind of funny, right, but yeah, just that's all I'll say right now, cause
yeah. So I agree. I gave it a 2. And this is also kind of, so I kind of put vocals and lyrics together because, granted, yes, it's old, not like brand new territory for Drake to use as much auto-tune and everything, but when you throw on lyrics that are just absolutely horrendous, it also kind of took a hit for me. So that's kind of like the end point of my vocal part. I just didn't say it yet. Lyrically, had to have been one of the worst performances on an album ever
in a while, at least, for sure. Yeah,
like since like Vultures 2. Like,
wasn't that long, but
yeah,
a couple months at least. Yeah.
It's just crazy that it's only been a couple months since we've had, you know, absolutely absurd nonsense. It's the fact that this is a quote unquote Valentine album.
Yeah.
Give or take.
Sure.
You're calling it some sexy songs for you or whatever it's called. Yeah. And then throughout, I'm pretty sure it's 21 tracks.
Yeah.
In 20 of the songs, all you're really talking about is all of the things that you're able to do, why women should want you, why strippers should want you, how much money you have and how much you can provide because you're so rich. But then, get this, one song out of the 21 then goes, why can't I find anyone to love me? Like, why can't they just love me for me? Sure. Well, Drake, you're not going to find love in a strip club. Didn't know if you knew that. Shut up. Because I digress.
I'm hearing what you're saying. I agree with you. Yeah.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
It's so bad. But I will say, like, kind of same thing with you, like, moments. Here
yeah, there's a moment where you
little chuckle, like, ha.
Yeah. A little wordplay, and you're like, nah, I get what you did there.
And then go back to hating everything.
Yeah, no, I agree with a lot of that. I did put a little bit more of that kind of analysis here in this next section. What'd you give lyrics? 1, 0?
2.
2? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Better than I was expecting based on your description. But talking about the concept or theme here, obviously it's kind of this sensual, mellow, a little bit club dance playlist style thing. Certainly not what I would consider like, I mean, it's an album in the sense that it's an album.
Right.
Right. But like the way it's structured doesn't have like an album feel of like an opening, a development, and a closing. Kind of like, you know, at least in that style. Not even that like it needs to be a concept to be an album, but you know, you get the idea.
Right. It doesn't feel like there's a start to finish.
Right. It feels definitely more like a playlist where if you were listening to it on shuffle one time as opposed to just straight through, you wouldn't really notice a difference, which definitely happened to me the second time I listened to it.
Shout out to listening through it twice.
It's because I forgot. Yeah, I didn't want to, but anyways, yeah, but it feels very playlist style.
Yeah.
What I will say is like, first of all, it makes so much of Kendrick's diss tracks towards Drake so much funnier.
Yeah.
It's just because of like, he just gets massively disrespected for just being this like freaky, like weirdo dude for so long. And then first thing he comes out with is just like the wackest, weirdest. I guess, I don't know. It felt weird to me, but like, maybe I'm just not the target audience. And I'll say that, you know? Maybe this is for people that aren't me, and that's cool. But yeah, it made that beef, those disses a lot funnier to me. I will say that, like, just in terms of the content, it was super, super garbage. Even, you know, and I'll say, like, overly sensual kind of stuff, just in general, like, I don't really jive with in music all the time, really, that much. So, you know, that's for sure part of it, but also, I feel like just the way everything like was discussed in it was super garbage. Like very uninteresting, very I don't know. Just uninteresting. Very bad. Like it wasn't any kind of good content in terms of like falling in love, finding love, you know, being with a person like that. Like none of it was just discussed well, which, you know, is crazy. Even, you know, and let's just pull again from the Weekend album because that's a recent R&B style album, right? Niagara Falls, a track that I've been listening to a lot, does have some of those kinds of more sultry feelings associated with the song as well, and a lot of the content discussed is like similar if you're looking at like actually what they're talking about on that album versus that song. But that song explores it in such an interesting way in being like, you know, feeling, and I don't know if I want to go into a full analysis of this thing, but like basically just talking about how feelings and relationships and love change over time and how those feelings kind of get confused and brought back up and then forgot. Like it just, the way it develops is very interesting in that song. Everything about this album was very uninteresting. So I did give it a 2. It was pretty garbage. Yeah.
Well, 2 seems high. Because I gave it a 0.
And you can't hate on that.
And it's basically just because of like everything that I just said.
Yeah.
And I just hate that because like, what target audience are you shooting for? Because like, what kind of appeal does this have to anybody who's like in a current relationship, who's not a stripper? That's who it's for. It's for all of these like, and I'm not even trying to disrespect any kind of people.
Yeah.
I'm more so just trying to disrespect Drake. What are we doing? You're only talking to women who let me chill out just for a second.
Yeah. Slow the roll just a little bit. I like where you're going.
I don't want to get into murky waters here. The content itself is just abysmal.
Yeah.
Like you said, uninteresting. A lot of them are just flat out gross.
Yeah.
It's you're not gonna hear a song on this album in like a club setting because you wanted to make it more R&B and soul. There's no soul in the R&B and soul really.
Yeah.
And the R&B is way too mellow, and it's for all of the women that you sleep with.
Yeah. And yet, while you're like talking about all those things, you're just talking about like how horribly you treat people.
Right. Yeah. Like you're a terrible dude.
It's like, hey, hook up with me, but like I'm just gonna be the worst kind of guy. It's like, hey, yeah.
this album sucks. The concept is a 0.
Yeah.
I don't even care that there's no concept, but the fact that the concept is as bad as it is makes it worse.
Agreed.
-1.
-1. Subtract a point. Going into feature territory, not really a whole lot of feature presence, but we do get a couple. Mainly it's the dynamic between PARTYNEXTDOOR and Drake.
Yeah.
I gave the feature presence here a 2. I didn't really love any of the features that were present a whole lot.
Yeah.
That's not to say that I felt like anyone that showed up was just utter garbage. Maybe because of the exceptionally low bar set by the rest of the album.
Yeah.
But another reason for it being so low is it desperately needed presence there. To go back one concept, or to go back one category, just because I just thought of another example. Tyler, the Creator's last album, talked about very similar categories, but in very like interesting ways. So like the point being, the fact that it's just like a sensual album itself isn't the sole reason that I think it's garbage. It's just how poorly it was executed as well. On top of that,
100%.
You know, sorry, schizophrenic moment. Coming back here to the features, but like I also bring that up just to say there's so much room for other great artists on here. Don't know why nobody good is on here. Well, you know,
he's beefing for like beefing.
But even that's true. But even still, like I don't know, maybe Travis is trying to take a step back, and maybe 21's trying to take a step back because they don't really want to be associated with it, right? But, like, I know we've been accustomed to hearing those two guys on every album. So it's like, maybe you don't want to burn those features out because they've been on the last however many projects you have. But, hey, guess what? They've been the two of the most bright spots on every last project you have. So maybe there's a chance that makes this better.
Yeah. Or at least, like, have, like, 1 or 2 solid tracks.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. So there's just so much presence for more. I felt like it needed more. Even, you know, let's go this route. When's the last time we heard Drake do something cool with Lil Wayne? I think they did something on Certified Lover Boy, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
It wasn't great, but like...
But at least they did something together.
Yeah, at least they did something. And I even, like, just hearing this is why the Tyler, the Creator thought actually came up. Hearing Lil Wayne on Tyler, the Creator's album, he did fantastic. Yeah. He sounded great.
He did.
So I know that Lil Wayne still has it. And on that track, subject matter-wise, I know that Lil Wayne could perform in the realm that they're doing.
Yeah.
So, like, you know... Maybe it's too mellow for him. I don't know. But just, I say all that to say that there's just, it should have had something else because it got repetitive.
Well, like, you could have even tried to do something, like, super cool and bring back, like, your big 3 and do, like, a Moments for Life where it's you, Wayne, and Nicki Minaj. Like, one of those kinds of songs. Like, a little bit of nostalgic feel.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Nicki hasn't done anything in a minute now, but, like, I don't know, just like for a nostalgic person, like
last year, but
did she?
It was garbage.
Oh, Pink Friday too? Was that what it? Oh, yeah, it was pretty bad. Anyways, I gave features a 0, and like, and that's not even a diss, like you said, to
who's
the
on
features, right? Like, I don't think they did great, like,
but they weren't the worst part of the album,
right? And I mostly agree, like, just your Drake, like, even though you have, you know, half of these great artists who like don't mess with you anymore. Like, you still got the other half who still have talent. Like,
where's Lil Baby?
Where is Lil Baby? No, he just dropped an album. I know where Lil Baby is. He's trash.
But I'm saying, like, I know Lil Baby's like in Drake's corner. So like,
there's plenty of people.
You got people out there that would do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Get Jack Harlow. I mean, like, I don't want it, but, like, try something at this point. Like, Jack's just doing whatever at this.
Yeah.
So
I didn't even hate the last Jack Harlow track, to be 100% honest with you. But anyways, going into replay value, I know what yours is going to be.
Yeah.
Mine's going to be just a notch higher above that. I am going to give it a 1.
Oh.
Just because mostly in the second listen through, I was so not looking forward to it because I remember not enjoying it at all. That there were a couple moments that I was like, oh, this actually like isn't as bad as I remembered it.
Yeah.
So like I'll say maybe, definitely not, but maybe. In that sense, there's a moment or two that I'll listen to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
I think I did. Did I? Yeah, I did.
How many times have we shouted out Theo Vaughn?
2, not enough.
Yeah, you're
not
right.
enough.
Yeah, I gave it a 0.
Yeah.
This I can stand on this as this is the worst Drake project I've heard. Just hands down.
See. Yeah, and I'll let you finish here, but like just on that point, I think honestly Nevermind's worse. At least the Jimmy Cooks track's good on that one, but I do think honestly Nevermind's worse personally. But
is that the
That's the dance one right before For All the Dogs.
Yeah.
Right before Her Loss. I take that back.
I will say that I don't think I've listened. If I did listen to that album, I feel like I did. Didn't we do a discography? We didn't do a discography?
No, not for Drake.
Oh, good.
I don't think I'll put us through that.
Please don't. I'll say no. I don't think I listened to that one. I might have. I don't remember. So I can't really say on that. But for me, worst album that I've heard from Drake, top to bottom. Everything was sloppy. Everything was lazy. Nothing was executed properly. Party Next Door probably wasn't your best route to go.
Yeah.
You just... It's like you wanted to like get away from the beef for a sec, like let everything kind of settle down, and then you decided, hey, let's make an album and drop it so that people can make fun of me even more, now disregarding the beef. And he did that great. So
yeah. Overall, it came out to a 3 out of 10 for me, and honestly, I don't really hate that score all that much. What are you sitting at?
1.1.
1.1.
Yeah.
And it's a 1 out of 10.
Oh, yeah.
I've definitely heard some zeros in my life, though, so at least it's not that bad for you.
Actually, I think this is my lowest rating.
On the show, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure, I would venture to say, I would guess you've heard worse albums, yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
We could pull up some
I don't even remember who.
Young Boy NBA and you would get a
dude. I think I actually found one song from him that like I really vibe with. There's a.
Anyways.
Yeah, not the point.
Not the point. But yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
I did find a couple tracks just to bring up here. Did you find any tracks worth talking about?
In worst song, I put all of them.
Okay, and that's the whole category for you.
Yeah.
I did find one that I felt like was the best, and one that was maybe a little bit underrated. I felt like the brightest spot on the album was Small Town Fame. It was one of the few moments where Drake did pick up the energy a little bit on the rapping portion. So that I liked that it changed that monotonous pace up a little bit.
Yeah.
I did think the beat was not that bad, and Party Next Door kind of still brought that mellow vocal side to it, which was kind of a cool element. If there were a song to come back to, I would maybe say it's that one, but I could very, very well never see myself never listening to it again.
Yeah.
If I did pick an underrated moment, I would say it was Crying in Chanel. Just because it wasn't disgusting like top to bottom. Like, it was only minorly gross at some point. And it was early enough on that I wasn't like in its placement that I wasn't just annoyed by the monotone sound. Like I was still kind of okay with that mellow R&B vibe. I felt like it kind of worked on that track with the production choice there. The worst, you're right. You can kind of take your pick. I did bring up a couple specifics here. Glorious with whatever the heck that Ice Spice sample was so bad. So bad. And anybody bumping Deeper by the Party Next Door just really needs to reconsider some things. That one was also very bad. And I'll say that, if you listen to this, if you're really bumping this album top to bottom and you're like, this is my vibe, like maybe you need to look in the mirror just a little bit. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, but it's just like, kind of, what are we doing here? Like,
it's more sad than
and that's what I'm saying. Like, is it that you're just like not actually listening to it, and it's just background music to you, and like it's so mellow that and like boring that's like, I could see that maybe. But like, yeah, if you're like really vibing with the lyrics and everything, and you're like really digging into this album, like, this is the stuff, this is the bar. If you're one of those people, I don't know if anyone is, maybe reevaluate some things about music.
I think I need to hit up James.
Yeah,
I need to know.
Need to get the feelings.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, to be fair, that new Cole was also pretty garbage. So
you didn't like that song?
That sounded so bad.
Really?
Why was he trying to sing? That was abysmal. That sounded so awful. Yeah. So at least Drake's not the only person that sucks right now.
Wow.
Yeah. Clouds?
Yeah.
You like Clouds? You need some help. Anyways. See you next week. Yeah, that Clouds was not